Hello and welcome to Faith Matters. Today we're at Hope University where we're interviewing Becca Millar, who is a chaplain, Methodist chaplain across the 3 universities in Liverpool. I'm joined here by my colleague Laura Pasterfield. I'm going on a study leave from May to July this year, and Laura is going to be presenting the show, so we thought we'd do a show together, didn't we, Laura?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, Becca, nice to see you today, and nice to come into the university to interview you. How long have you been a chaplain here?
So I started here in September, so just a couple of months, 5 now, so not too long, but yeah, it's good, it's exciting.
And you're very young to be a chaplain. Can you tell us how old you are?
I'm 22. I graduated from this university in the summer. I studied theology and Christian studies, so sort of led to a job in this sort of field naturally, and didn't really want to leave Liverpool, so I thought, why not stick around?
Okay, and you're obviously not ordained as such.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
No, let's hold that thought.
Okay, Hope University, where we are here now. I mean, you're the chaplain across the 3 universities, but here at Hope, this is a Christian Foundation university, Catholic, Protestant. Do you want to just tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, it used to be 2 different sort of colleges on 2 different sites. It's based on 2 different sides of the road. And on one side was the sort of Catholic college, and one side was the Protestant college run by, and it was in the 60s, I think it was Bishop Shepherd and Archbishop Warlock were really wanted to bring the 2 together and make them work together as a unit and as an ecumenical unit. And then gradually that's sort of how the birth of the university came about. And now we are Europe's only ecumenical, fundamentally ecumenical university. So it's an exciting sort of melding of the 2.
And Becca, you mentioned that you were a student here, but how did it feel going from being a student to being a chaplain?
Yeah, it's been a really interesting sort of transition. For quite a lot of it, it's actually been quite simple and it's a very small university here, so you actually you get to know staff members quite well, and especially the guys in my department were really chuffed when they found out I got the job. So they're very much like, hello chaplain, and I'm like, hello professor. It's been interesting. The students who I have been good friends with for 2 years, it's now that relationship looks a little bit different, but yeah, I think as long as you sort of establish clear boundaries, but you also don't take yourself too seriously with it, and if you're able to relax and just be yourself, I think that's how I've gone about it and tried to do it. So yeah, it's been tricky, but good tricky.
So Becca, what was your experience of the chaplaincy like when you were a student?
I think it was a really interesting one because like we've seen, it's really sort of central in the campus, so it's very easy to find, and it's a very useful place to use the microwave or make a cup of tea. So I was in and out quite a lot, but I sort of, for my own faith and that aspect of going in as somewhere as a place of sanctuary and a place of sort of calm, I don't think I really got into using that space until my 3rd year actually, and it took a bit of, because I think there's a certain level of humility that comes with going in and wanting to chat to somebody about these sort of issues, or if you're feeling a bit down or whatever. So I think it took me a while to get into the habit of going in and just being able to go in and rest and relax there, but without it just being just another cup of tea or something. I was quite good friends with some of the other chaplains who worked here last year, which made those sort of relationships and conversations a lot easier and a lot more natural. So yeah, I was in and out quite a bit, but without it took me a while to sort of get to that stage, and I think that's pretty common for most of the students as well actually, unless they get into the habit of coming in right from their 1st year, sometimes it just sort of take a while for them to realise, we're not scary, we're not going to try and force the Bible down your throat, we just want to hang out, have a cup of tea and sort of see where you're at. And so yeah, I used it. It's a great facility to have as well, and the fact that you can come in and come out so freely. I think a lot of the time people might be afraid to use it, but really there's nothing to be too scared of. So yeah.
Well, Becca, tell us a little bit about your personal faith journey. Are you happy to do that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So I was brought up sort of in the Church of England with my mum and dad were both going to church. They took me along. My grandpa, so my dad's dad, was a vicar. So it's sort of always been something I'd grown up with, really. And yeah, it was just sort of a part of my... I didn't really think anything of it being separate. And I think it was when I was sort of 15, 16, and I was like, oh, hey, I don't actually have to go to church on Sunday. This is pretty sweet. So, you know, but there was always something about sort of sucks you in, really. And I always enjoyed going to church. I always found it quite uplifting and quite a peaceful place to go, and quite for myself. I find, you know, on a Sunday I'd go to church and sort of feel a bit more restored and a bit more ready for the week to come. I was like, especially when you are at that age of sort of 17, 18, it's quite, to go on a weekly basis to church is quite a big step, and it was also something I did sort of fairly naturally without much sort of thought or ado, but it was never something that was particularly important in my life. It was not, you know, it wasn't high. You know, I'd much rather go out with my friends on a weekend, or, you know, revise for my exams, or get involved, you know, go to the cinema or whatever, do some of the other stuff. And then when I was 18, when I finished my A-levels, I went to Canada for a year and lived in Toronto. And I worked with a charity over there called Urban Promise. And so that was working in sort of the inner city areas, working with youth and sort of running after school programs and things. And that was a big step for me, because that went from, you know, going to church on a Sunday was just sort of something I did, to, okay, you've really got to be trusting in God and doing all this thing. You know, you have to have such a strong faith to be able to get you through these, you know, these challenges and these opportunities. So that was a big sort of decision for me, and a big sort of growth, period of growth, of actually, okay, well, what does this Christianity thing look like for me? What is that in my life? And do I believe this? And so, yeah, that was a year of really trying to figure things out, and, you know, whilst having a lot of fun and being in Canada, so it wasn't too hard. But, yeah, so it was a real sort of a growth period. And then I came back and came to university here. And I think that's when you have to when you move away from the sort of the safety net of having your home church or working for a religious organisation, of, okay, I'm just me by myself. Do I go to church? Do I not go to church? Do I go out and get drunk all the time? Do I not? Do I, you know, what does it look like? What does being a Christian at university look like for me? So, you know, it's trying to tread that balance. So, you know, I like to go out, but I wouldn't be, you know, staying out till 6 a.m. every night. And so I did try and make a real important sort of step of going to church and of doing that on a weekly basis, which is not the common thing at university, I think. And yeah, getting stuck in. I got really stuck in with the Christian Union here at the university, and a couple of local churches, and that was really put in my faith. And yeah, I mean, like everybody else, you go up and down, and there are struggles and times when I have, you know, proper arguments with God, but there are also times where you feel really supported and really loved. And so I think it's been a sort of journey of growth, but like any journey, you know, twists and turns. And
so you've got a Church of England background, that's what you said.
Yep.
But you're also you're a Methodist chaplain. You know, how does that work? What's the Methodist context here?
So obviously, sort of with studying theology, I had a bit of an understanding of a range of different church backgrounds, and which was actually quite freeing and opened up a lot of opportunities. And it was my good friend April, who was my predecessor in this role, had sort of given me a bit of a heads up of, I'm leaving, this role's going to be coming available, would you be interested? And I was like, but I'm not actually a Methodist. I go to a Church of England. Is that a problem? Should I tell them? And I think because, you know, theologically they're very sort of similar backgrounds. It's not like there's any big issues that overlap or anything. So,
of course, Wesley's were Anglicans,
yeah,
of course, they were.
Of course. Yeah. And so when I applied, I was very honest with them in my interview. I was like, I'm not actually a Methodist. Is that okay? And I mean, I think so. So here I am. So, but it's actually, I'm finding it really interesting and really fascinating, exploring a different way of doing church to sort of what I'm used to and what I've grown up with, and then looking at, you know, it's still worshipping God. It's still loving other people. It's just only slightly different, but different ways. So yeah, and I think it's a real privilege as well to work together and sort of take my background, but also then sort of with humility come and learn and grow and walk with Methodists for another sort of 2.5 years. So,
Well, thanks, Becca. We're going to go now to our commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about university chaplaincy here and also in the other two universities. So join us after the commercial break for Faith Matters.
Hello and welcome back to Faith Matters. We're here with Becca Millar, our Methodist chaplain at Hope University. But Becca, you're not just a chaplain here, are you? You're also a chaplain at the other two universities locally, so Liverpool University and John Moores.
Yes.
So how does that work? Are they different? How do they feel?
Yeah, so I think that was one of the things that really excited me about the job, was it is sort of sticking with what I know, sticking with where I studied, but also an opportunity to work at the other two sort of big university institutions here. I think the first thing I've noticed, and I'd say, is they're completely different universities, each three of them. It's like you can't take one rule that would naturally apply at Hope and apply it to John Moores, because they are different. So it's almost wearing three different hats a lot of the time. Obviously there is a more sort of natural allegiance with the other two, with them both being in the city centre, and a lot of their buildings are very close by, and a lot of the teachers and staff will work together. It provides some real challenges at times. Obviously, sort of splitting your time three ways and looking at sort of, okay, well, if I'm doing this at John Moores, do I have to do the same thing here at Hope? But I don't think that'd work at Hope, and especially with some of the buildings and rooms that you don't have at all of the universities. It is a challenge, but it's a good, because it makes you think. It keeps you sharp, and got to be on your toes, definitely.
Okay, Becca, you're a chaplain to students in the main, are you?
Yes.
So what does chaplaincy do for students?
I think chaplaincy is often used as an umbrella term for sort of a bit of everything, really. I think my role, I'd say, fundamentally is to be student support, there for students when they need you, but also there is this sort of, you can't ignore you're more than just a support network or a counsellor or a shoulder to cry on. There is this religious element, and so the way I've approached it, and I feel like my predecessors have, and my colleagues at the moment, is you're there to represent God to the students. You're there to bring this sort of concept of faith and Christianity, whatever that may be, to students. So for me, I'd say a lot of the time it is, it's being a listening ear, it's being a sort of hopefully wise counsel for people to come and chat to if they've got any issues, if things are sort of going really wrong, but also if things are going really, really well and they want somebody to celebrate with. Sometimes it's pointing people in the right direction if they need something sorting out with housing or with finance or with sort of disability support or whatever it may be, but they don't quite know where to turn, and ask you a question, and you can help point them and direct them in the right way. So that's really good. I work really closely with the student advice and wellbeing teams at the universities as well. So there's a lot of overlap of, I've just been there for students if they want somebody to talk to, if they're finding things really, if they're really struggling, but they don't need counselling or they don't need financial help, they just need a friend, and that's what we're here to do. Ultimately we're here to be friends to people and for Jesus to people, and just to show them some element of love and care and support. So it looks very different on each day, really.
And do you think students are open spiritually? I mean, some people say it's the time when people are most open to all kinds of influences and ideas.
It is a real, it's a real sort of melting pot of ideas and things that you come to university and it's a time to form your own opinions. And sort of like I was saying earlier, for me, when I came to university, it was working out what I believe and what's important to me. And I think so many students are in that stage of working out what they agree with and disagree with, and what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, but also what they believe. And so to be able to wrestle with some of those things with students, and also do a bit of playing devil's advocate, and okay, so if you don't believe that, then how does this impact this, for example? So it's being able to challenge students and to work with them and to encourage them, and maybe provide opportunities for them to see things from a different perspective. And So that might be showing the different sort of church services or interacting with different sort of colleagues. We work quite closely with the JSOS, the Jewish Society and the Islamic Society, and we're engaging with different people of different faiths and working out what that means for people. So yeah, it's a really engaging time, but also quite a thought-provoking time as well for people.
And perception, how are these students perceiving you?
Good question.
Do you know even how they...
I think again that looks very different at each of the universities, and that sort of goes with the feel of the university. I feel here at Hope the chaplaincy has a real strong presence, and that's because of the religious foundations of the university, and it is sort of seen at the heart of the university, not in a physical way just with its location, but also it is seen as an integral part of all the teams and all the universities. So I think in that way we're seen as a pastoral support, and people to come and get sort of slightly religious advice from, but also as a safe space and an open space and a sort of a drop-in centre, if you like. Whereas at some of the other universities we're almost an offshoot of, sort of student support services or student advice and well-being, and I think a lot of the time people don't understand what chaplaincy is, which is great and not great at the same time, because for me I think chaplaincy can be whatever you need it to be. If you need it to be somebody to help you sort some of these issues out, then we can be that. But if you need us to help you with deal with some counselling issues that you have, we can be that as well. And so I think people will have this real sort of strict view, and you have to be religious to go in, and it's not about that at all. It's much more open and liberal, and it's just a more relaxed environment than I think people would perceive it often.
And what about staff, engaging with staff? That might not be your role exactly, but obviously chaplains do engage with staff.
Yeah, it's I think that's one of the other things with perception as well. I think a lot of the time people would perceive us to be there only for students, which is completely not true. We're there just as much for the staff as well. And we at John Moores and University of Liverpool, there is an Anglican chaplain dedicated to the staff, and so I think it's providing opportunities to engage with staff and to interact with them. We do sort of prayer drop-ins for people if they want to get involved, and that's in like a lunchtime, because often that'll be the only free time that people would have, and engage with people, inviting them to various opportunities, but also in terms of finding out what would interest them. And a lot of the time it's things getting involved with academic discussion, but in a different forum to in a classroom. It's okay, well, let's engage with this on a spiritual level, on a what that means to you personally kind of level, which you don't get to the same extent with working with the students. So
I was a chaplain in the university actually a long time ago, and also from Merseyside Police for a while, and I used to talk about what I call corridor counselling, where you're just walking around the place and you might meet somebody and have a conversation, and they raise something. I mean, that's how it often works, isn't it?
It's very much. It's that sort of thing of always having your eyes open and always being aware and listening to people and listening to just sort of what you're feeling, because you don't know what people are going through, and you might be the first person in a day to ask them how they are. And a lot of the time that's all it takes for people, and they could really open up to you. And it's a real blessing that you actually I get to do this as my job. Is quite incredible really, but a lot of the time the conversations are brief snippets that you fit into 5 minutes over a cup of tea and then go again. But
so Becca, do you think that university chaplaincy needs sort of reimagining for the 21st century?
I think a lot of the time when people think chaplaincy, both chaplains and students and staff alike, I think have a very sort of specific image of chaplain. Like you say, I'm not ordained. A lot of the time you think it's an ordained post, which it can be, but it can also not be, as we see. People have this sort of very specific idea, and I think we're in the process now of moving away from that, and like you say, reimagining that and looking at, okay, well, what does chaplaincy look like here and now? I think one thing I've noticed, a massive, we've sort of got the coffee shop culture at the moment, and that's where people meet and mingle and do work and things at the moment. So it's looking at, okay, well, how do I chaplain in this space? A lot of the time it might be going and sit with people who are just going for a round of drinks in the pub, and looking at being prepared to be flexible and working out what works for individuals. I don't think there is a sort of a cookie cutter sort of shape of chaplaincy, and I think if we get to that stage, I don't think that's helpful and healthy. So I think it's being flexible, listening to what you feel God is telling you, listening to what the institutions are telling you. A lot of the time you're asked to do specific things, but it's praying with them and working out, okay, well, how is this going to benefit students and staff? And sometimes the moulds and the sort of the institutional moulds are actually really helpful. So, planning a specific service, or if it's a remembrance service or a Christmas service, those are things are sort of expected, and actually having that mould is really helpful because people know, oh, the chaplaincy do this is a great way of interacting. But also then on the flip side of being like, oh, I saw a chaplain in a pub the other day, it was really great actually. And so being prepared to sort of push these boundaries a bit and challenge people.
And that's what I liked about being a chaplain, is, being a chaplain in the pub, I remember that.
It's a good one.
It's always a good one. And Becca, thank you so much for inviting us to your wonderful chapel and into this university today, and for the interview today. And thank you for viewing. Join us next time on Faith Matters.